CAR T-cell therapy is a form of cancer treatment that has gained traction in recent years. I will discuss and analyze a model presented in the paper that describes the dynamics of CAR T-cell and tumor cell populations in a solid tumor. CAR T-cells are T-cells engineered to express chimeric antigen receptors, also known as CARs. The single-chain variable fragment here of the CAR are designed to bind to antigens present on tumor cells. The binding then causes the co-stimulatory domain and the activation domain to activate the T cell. There's a lot of excitement around CAR T cell therapy. There have been 2 recently approved therapies, both in 2017. There has been a lot of success with hematologic cancers. However, there has been limited success in solid tumors such as glioblastoma and neuroblastoma due to tumor microenvironment-induced immunosuppression. There are many different varieties of CAR T cells, as you can see on the right. The paper presents 3 major points for CAR T cells in solid tumors. Increased amounts of CAR T cells can overcome the tumor microenvironment immunosuppression, and this immunosuppression can cause treatment failure. However, different initial CAR T cell and tumor cell populations can lead to relapses. Something also discussed in the paper, but not in this presentation, is the dual target CAR T cells and how they can aid in relapse response. This is the model presented in the paper. The first equation is the change in CAR T cells with respect to time, and the second equation is the change in tumor cells with respect to time. In the first equation, the first term represents the growth of CAR T cells, which is stimulated by the presence of tumor cells. The second term represents the death of CAR T cells induced by the tumor microenvironment generated by the tumor cells. And the third term represents the inactivation of CAR T cells due to the limiting capacity of the CAR T cell population. Down below, the first term for tumor cells is the growth of the tumor cells, and the second term is the death of tumor cells caused by the CAR T cells. The authors only used in silico simulations, but they provide some fundamental insights into the system. For example, with a fixed tumor inactivation rate, which is the hostile effect of the tumor microenvironment on the CAR T cells, this is represented by alpha 1. So with a fixed rate of 0.04 per day per cell, a higher concentration of CAR T cells can lead to an elimination of tumor cells. So as you see on the left, a low initial concentration of CAR T cells might lead to the tumor population dominating and the CAR T cell population being eliminated, whereas if you have more CAR T cells in the beginning, you can see here that the CAR T cell population dominates and the tumor population is eliminated. This is intuitive, as more T cells would lead to more elimination of tumor cells, which means there are fewer tumor cells at the end. On the other hand, with fixed initial CAR T cell and tumor cell populations, a higher value of tumor inactivation rate leads to the tumor cells dominating the population dynamics. So on the left here, you have now a fixed initial population, but you have a low tumor inactivation rate, which means the CAR T cells can function more efficiently, and this leads to the elimination of tumor cells. Whereas on the right, you have a higher tumor inactivation rate, which means the tumor cells can better defend themselves and actually dominate in the dynamics. This is also intuitive, since stronger defensive mechanics will lead to a more robust tumor population. However, here, things become a little more interesting. In the first case, the initial populations of the CAR T cells and tumor cells are set to some amount. In the second case, both of them are reduced by 80%. And in the third case, the CAR T cell population is increased back to its original value. However, the tumor cells are still at the reduced population. The notable thing is that in the first and third cases, even though the population of tumor cells is smaller in the third case, a relapse of tumor cells has occurred, whereas in the first case, we do not yet see any signs of relapse for the same time frame. This is a little bit counterintuitive. Even though the initial CAR T cell population is the same in both cases, and there are fewer tumor cells to eliminate in the third case, a resurgence of tumor cells has occurred more quickly in the third case as opposed to the first case. This is because the growth rate of CAR T cells is dependent on the presence of the tumor cells. More tumor cells means higher stimulation of CAR T cell growth. This is a very specific case and only computational, but the possibility of such a scenario is still quite interesting. Ideally, the CAR T cells dominate on their own, but relapses are common, and the paper addresses this with dual targeting CAR T cells. But it is unclear when relapses occur, and if they occur at all, values of the tumor inactivation rate. To understand what conditions might cause these relapses to occur, we can look at the phase plane of the CAR T cell population and the tumor cell population. For a low tumor inactivation rate of 0.04 per day per cell, which was used in the paper, we can qualitatively see three zones. Zone 1 is the tumor population, which dominates over the CAR T cell population. Zone 2, in which the CAR T cell population dominates over the tumor cell population. And then Zone 3, the CAR T cell population and tumor cell population oscillate, which represents relapse. So first, you can see with the initial conditions in Zone 1, the CAR T cell population is decreased and the tumor population is increased. Whereas in Zone 2, with these initial conditions, the tumor population is decreased and the CAR T cell population is increased. However, you can see in Zone 3 that taking this initial condition, for example, the CAR T cell population is increased and the tumor population is initially decreased. But this reverts back to the origin and the tumor population increases again, which leads to this cycle of increasing and decreasing CAR T cell and tumor cell populations. To better understand how each zone changes due to the tumor inactivation rate, we can analyze the equilibrium points. There are up to 3 equilibrium points in the system with these values. The presence of equilibrium points 2 and 3 is dependent on the discriminant seen on the right here. There are a lot of parameters, but the paper provides values for each parameter based on previous literature and some estimations. Using the provided parameters and by using the Jacobian matrix, we can characterize each equilibrium point in the specific case. The first point at 0, 0 is a saddle point because of the negative determinant, and the same for the second point, which is also a saddle point because of the negative determinant. However, the third point is a spiral source because we have a positive trace in determinant, but the trace squared minus 4 times the determinant is negative. Qualitatively, we can see this by observing some trajectories close to each equilibrium point, where we can see the saddles at equilibrium point 1 and equilibrium point 3. And we can see the spiraling trajectories representing relapse at the second equilibrium point. By using different values for the tumor inactivation rate, we can observe the changes in each zone. As the tumor inactivation rate increases, zone 1 which represents the tumor cell population dominating, extends a little closer to the origin, whereas it's up here in a case where there's a low tumor inactivation rate is extended all the way down here in a higher tumor inactivation rate scenario. Zone 2, which represents the CAR T cell population dominating, moves away to the right, and you can no longer see it on this equilibrium point phase plane when you get to the higher tumor inactivation rate values. And finally, zone 3, representing the relapse cases, shrinks until it disappears. The paper proposes dual target CAR T cells to address relapses, but you can see here that with a high enough tumor inactivation rate, addressing the relapses is no longer possible because the two equilibrium points merge into one and the relapse trajectories are no longer present. Therefore, we can see that we need to ensure a lower tumor inactivation rate in order to even consider addressing relapses in treatment. Overall, we have examined two main effects in the model. First, we saw that an increased concentration of CAR T cells may increase the chance of success. But also, we saw that an increased tumor inactivation rate can lead to failure, and also more rapidly evolving states, which may prevent relapses. We can apply these findings to improve CAR T cell therapy. First, we can increase the concentration of CAR T cells that are administered, but there are a few limitations with this approach. So far, there is observed toxicity with large doses of CAR T cells, and there is also a large cost to manufacturing CAR T cells. And also, there is a difficulty of delivering CAR T cells, especially due to the physiology of solid tumors and how it is difficult for CAR T cells to reach and stay towards the center of the solid tumor. On the other hand, we can decrease the tumor inactivation rate, which is difficult, but may even be necessary if we want to use CAR T cell therapy efficiently with solid tumors. We can increase the ability of CAR T cells to resist the tumor microenvironment by addressing the cytokines present in the ECM, effectively decreasing the tumor inactivation rate. And also, the tumor microenvironment, if left unchecked, can induce terminal differentiation in CAR T cells and incapacitate them, making CAR T cell therapy inefficient. There are also other ways of improving CAR T cell therapy being studied right now, such as including dual targeting or combination therapy for improved relapse response, which this paper tries to suggest with dual targeting CAR T cells. It is also possible to increase the antigen specificity, which would decrease the toxicity of larger CAR T cell doses and increase the efficiency of treatment. It is also possible to implement drug fractionation, which is administering the same dose but in smaller quantities but distributed over time. And this has been shown to be effective for solid tumors with small molecules, but a similar study hasn't really been done for CAR T cells. And lastly, it is possible to change the targets of the CAR T cells such that they target the stem cells in tumors rather than just targeting a generic tumor antigen. I hope you learned something interesting about CAR T cell therapy, and thank you for listening.